Chapter 17. Renee. Renee pressed her lips together and stared at Clay as he looked over everything she'd just told him.
Okay, so the first thing we need to do is create a list of suspects. Who would want to hurt Garrett?
Well, the most obvious choice is the coyote. Not only did he punch Garrett, but he threatened to kill him if the cholera victims didn't get back to the camp, and then the mother disappeared. Clay's mouth pulled into a hard line.
Yeah, he told me about that, but he couldn't give me much to go on besides that the guy was big and had a lot of tattoos.
Renee shook her head. I'm afraid I can't help much there. I never even saw the guy. But we could check with the hospital to see if any of the women are still there. Maybe one of them would know.
Maybe, but it's unlikely they would tell me even if they did know.
Clay blew out a frustrated breath.
He's definitely top of the list, but I'm going to need more help to find him. Anyone else you can think of?
My neighbor, possibly, Renee said softly.
Your neighbor? Why?
Renee shrugged. He's been obsessed with me lately, and he wasn't happy when Garrett dropped me off the other night. He didn't confront him or anything, and I always thought he was harmless, but his behavior has been unsettling, to say the least.
Clay nodded. What is this neighbor's name?
Chris. I don't even know his last name or what apartment he lives in, but it must be pretty close to mine. He's got shaggy brown hair that covers his eyes. My roommate might know his last name or which apartment he lives in. I think she's talked to him more than I have.
Clay scribbled the information down. That's a start. I'll check into Carrie as well and see if she's still in Chicago.
Carrie? Who's Carrie? Renee asked.
Clay's brows lifted. He didn't tell you about Carrie?
I'm not sure. Is that the woman he dated in Chicago?
Clay nodded. He and Carrie worked together and she didn't handle it well when they broke up. She made his life miserable. That was part of the reason he left Chicago.
Was it so bad that she would follow him out here?
I don't know, but I'm not canceling anyone off the list. Is there anyone else you can think of?
Wait, he said there was another woman too. The mom of a patient who he thought was stalking him in Chicago, Renee said, remembering the conversation they'd had a few days ago, right after his accident.
Right, Patty Greenfield. I looked into her when he thought the accident was purposeful. I don't think it would be her. She seems to have moved on and married a chiropractor. Anyone else?
Renee closed her eyes and walked through the last few weeks. I don't think so. I mean, there's always the chance of a patient's family not liking the care we give them, but I can't think of anyone who... She paused, her memory snagging on one encounter that stood out.
What?
Clay asked. I don't know if it's anything, but there was this patient. Garrett and I both got a really weird feeling when we dealt with the mom, but she didn't seem upset. She even basically asked Garrett on a date later that day as we were leaving.
She asked him out?
Not in so many words, but yeah.
What did he say?
He told her no, that hospital policy said he couldn't. She didn't seem too happy that he was walking out with me, though. Clay wrote this information down, too.
Do you remember her name?
Renee shook her head. No, but I'm sure I could find it in the records. I remember Garrett thought the boy had been poisoned.
By the mother?
He couldn't prove it, but yeah, I think he thought so.
Clay nodded. Anyone else you can think of?
Not off the top of my head, no, Renee said. You do think he's okay, right?
I don't know, but I hope so. I'm going to look into Carrie and the coyote. Then I'll take a trip to your apartment to talk to this Chris fellow. Can you find the information on the woman at the hospital?
Yeah, I'm off today, but that should be no problem.
Good.
He pulled a card from his pocket and handed it to her.
Here's my number. Call me as soon as you find anything because time is of the essence.
Renee nodded and took the card. She knew Clay couldn't promise anything, but they had to find Garrett. They just had to. As soon as Clay left, Renee headed to the hospital. Yolanda was at the nurse's station and looked up at her with raised eyebrows as Renee approached. "What are you doing here? You're not on today." "I came to look up information on a patient." "What for?" "Yolanda, Dr. Young didn't flake out on his shift today. He's missing." "What do you mean, missing?" "I mean, his truck is in the parking lot, but he never made it into work. I just finished compiling a list of suspects with his brother so we can try and find him." "Did you put yourself on that list?" "Me? Why would I put myself on the list? I adore Garrett. I would never do anything to hurt him." "Maybe you would if he didn't feel the same way." "But he did," Renee said with a soft sigh. "We were going to tell HR we were dating the next shift we had together." Yolanda shook her head. "He told me on his first day that he didn't date coworkers. He doesn't seem like the kind that would change his mind." "Well, he did. It's not like he planned it. It just sort of happened." "Did it?" Yolanda asked. "I know about Texas." Renee clenched her hands into fists. This had nothing to do with Texas, but if Yolanda knew about Texas, that might explain why she'd been so hard on Renee. "I'm not the same person I was when I lived in Texas, and my relationship with Garrett is nothing like that one. Now, are you going to let me look at the records so I can try and help Garrett or not?" "You can look at the records, but I'll be watching you," Yolanda said. "Fine." Renee sat down in front of the computer and pulled up the search bar. She didn't remember exactly when the mother and son had come in, but she did remember the complaint: vomiting. It took her a few minutes to find the case she was looking for. She didn't realize how many kids they saw for vomiting. But when it popped on her screen, she recognized it at once. Garrett had even put suspected poisoning. Renee quickly texted the information to Clay and asked if there was anything else she could do. She chewed her lip as she waited for his reply. "Not yet," came the reply. "Still checking things on my end." With a sigh, Renee pushed back from the computer and prepared to head home to wait. Something she knew would be difficult today, but thankfully, she knew she could spend the time in prayer.